Welcome everybody, wherever you find yourself in the world, and welcome to all participants of the live screening of this talk. The topic I've chosen for the occasion is Esperanto used in feature films. This talk completes and updates a previous talk of mine given in Esperanto at the Esperanto London Club on 15 January 2021. What is a feature film? Basically, feature films are films upon which most of the entire film industry is based. They are fictional, therefore you have to exclude documentaries, for instance, and they are long enough to be worth paying a ticket for seeing them. The exact length depends on the institutions, as the definition by Kyle de Guzman shows. I use this definition so to exclude short films on purpose. In fact, it is easier to produce a short film than a feature film, as the former are less expensive in terms of budget. For this reason, there is a certain number of short films in Esperanto made by Esperantists or by young filmmakers in search of something different, more or less underground. Although they may be interesting in a few cases, I am convinced that framing Esperanto in a feature film is more challenging and so, in general, more interesting. How many feature films used Esperanto ever? Approximately 20 in total. The two lists I provide for the 20th and the 21st centuries, respectively, are more or less complete. However, it is always possible that I miss a forgotten gem of the past, or a brand new film that I have not seen yet, as it happened to me in the Esperanto version of this talk about a Polish film released in year 1971, whose title in English can be I Do Not Like Mondays. That's why I wrote Selection. Of course, this is even more valid for the current century. However, the main point is not offer a complete list, but apply an analytical model robust enough for future applications to any other new feature film using Esperanto. In the following, I present the analytical model in theoretical terms, and then I will apply it, more or less briefly, to all feature films of the past and current centuries I am showing to you. Caveat: inevitably, I will spoil some elements. Thus, if you do not accept of knowing something about the plots, please cease to follow this talk before I start to apply the analytical model. In any case, rest assured that I shall try to keep spoiling at a minimum. I hope you bear with me. The analytical model I present is based on the dichotomy diegesis versus non-diegesis. In this paper on non-diegesis sound effects by Dick Hoff, the author offers a viable definition of diegesis. The world in which the characters live, no matter if realistic or fantastic, is the fictional film world that forms its diegesis. Everything happens inside it is diegetic. It coincides with Tolkien's definition of secondary world. The word of the public, readers, audience, and the like is what Tolkien called primary word, and it is non-diegetic. Dick Hoff gives two examples of non-diegetic sounds: traditional film music and voice-over narration. The characters cannot hear them. Spoken languages are interesting, as they can impact both visuals and sound in a film. Esperanto is no exception in this respect. Esperanto writings impact visuals, while dialogues in Esperanto, for instance, obviously impact sound. My analytical model, even if formally simple, as it has only two binary variables, i.e. visual versus speech and diegetic versus non-diegetic, is suitable for showing the variety of use of Esperanto in feature films. The combination of the two variables form a matrix with four possible cases. Before to delve into the feature films, I have to say that I found only few cases of non-diegetic use of Esperanto writings, that is case 3, so I show one immediately, then I pass to other aspects. In 2018, the Mexican director Alfonso Cuarón released the feature film Roma, distributed by Netflix. The film portrays the life of a living Mixteco housekeeper of an upper-middle-class family in the Colonia Roma neighborhood of Mexico City. There is no trace of Esperanto in the diegesis whatsoever. However, the production is by Esperanto Filmoj, and in the opening titles the audience reads in Esperanto Filmo produktita de Esperanto Filmoj. Once asked about this choice, Cuarón said that he is a friend of Esperanto as a language and ideal, and so he decided to name his production house Esperanto Filmoj. The first use of Esperanto ever in a feature film dates 1939 in Idiot's Delight, starring Clark Gable, who will appear in theaters in the same year with Gone with the Wind. Directed by Clarence Brown for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, it tells the story of an American couple, female character being Norma Shearer, on a trip to a plausible but fantastic country in Europe, struggling for war. Remember that the film was shot before 1939 and appeared a few months before Hitler invaded Poland. According to the account by Josef Schroeder written in January 1939, at the time president of the Esperanto Association of North America, Esperanto was used as a language of the European country at war, so not to offend any real country. In the novel upon which the film is based, the language should have been Italian. As, allegedly, the Italian language sounded aesthetically beautiful to many American ears, the director wanted to portray Esperanto as a musical language. Clark Gable sings a song in Esperanto, there are a few dialogues, and also writings, so the use of Esperanto here is fully diegetic in speech and sound. Many Esperantists think that The Great Dictator is the first film ever using Esperanto. Even if this is not true, the impact of Charlie Chaplin's masterpiece of year 1940 is without any doubt. Dictator Adenoid Hynkel, evidently a parody of Hitler, is expanding his regime in Europe while a poor Jewish barber tries to avoid persecution from Hynkel's regime. Both characters are played by Chaplin, so the plot goes around the case of mistaken identity. As you can see in the extract, some writings of the transfigured Jewish ghetto are in Esperanto: Ĉambroj, legomo kaj frukto, vestaĵoj malnovaj, terpomoj, and others. It is worth noting that not all of them are in Esperanto. The language is a signal of Yiddish, the everyday language of Jews in Central Europe at the time. According to Alessandra Madella 2019, here Esperanto is also a sign of cinema as a universal art during the delicate passage from silent films to sound. We can add that the powerful final speech directed to the audience, that is trans-diegetic, is along the lines of Homeranismo, Zamenhof's philosophical religion. The Hungarian drama Somewhere in Europe, 1947, is considered a masterpiece of Hungarian cinema. It tells the story of a baby gang of orphans in the aftermath of World War II. The film critics Liam and Liam have related this film with Italian neorealism. The Esperanto dubbing was produced for the centenary year 1987, and it was a great success in the World Esperanto Congress in Rotterdam, 1988. Angoroj is the first feature film originally produced in Esperanto for the Esperanto public. The director is Jacques-Louis Méhé, known among Esperantists under the pseudonym Lorjak. In the 20s lived in Paris and worked as a photographer and projectionist in the fashion industry, mainly for advertisements. Having learned Esperanto in Paris in the year 1928, he became the pioneer of Esperantist cinema. In 1936 he produced the propaganda silent film Antaŭen, that is Forward, and he became an Esperanto writer of popular fiction. In the 60s, France was a hub of innovation for the art of cinema. Mahé ventured in the production of Angoroj, Agonis, which came out in 1964. It's a 1-hour-long crime story, with Raymond Schwartz as the police chief and a voice-over by Gaston Varigny. Being a film by Esperantists for Esperantists, it could not turn to be a market success. Let's watch a dialogue together.
Vi interesiĝas pri kuriozaĵoj?
Iom?
Pri antikvaĵoj, bildoj, aŭtografoj?
Autografoj? Yes. Ĉu tie ĉi vi konas iun?
Mi mem havas multajn.
Ĉu por vendi?
Yes.
Kiajn?
Kalocaj, Varignan, Zamenhof.
Raymond Schwartz?
Raymond Schwartz, kompreneble. Mi havas tion hejme. Se vi bonvolas veni kun mi.
At the opposite side of the spectrum, in the art of cinema, we have Incubus, 1966. It's a horror film shot in Hollywood entirely in Esperanto, and it became mostly infamous for the terrible pronunciation of the language. Apparently, neither the production nor the director thought of asking for consultancy from American Esperantists on this aspect. The film was released with English and French subtexts, as the target was the general public, not the Esperanto one. Interestingly, before choosing Esperanto they considered even Volapük. Incubus was haunted by tragedies. The main actress, Anne Atmar, soon after the presentation of the film, committed suicide, and by accident almost all copies got destroyed. After 30 years, the last copy was found in the Cinémathèque Française in Paris and restored as a DVD. The film became a cult, as the main star is a young William Shatner, who became world famous as Captain Kirk in the Star Trek TV series.
Ni devas iri tra la arbaro tutsolo.
Mi ne havas elekton.
De kie vi venas?
Avernus, apud lagdo. Ni estas agrabla loko.
Kierne?
I Hate Mondays, 1971, is a Polish comedy directed by Tadeusz Chimliewski. The plot plays around the lives of many characters during an unlucky Monday. One story concerns Esperanto and Italian. The Italian industrialist Francesco Orvanelli flies to Warsaw with his delegation for signing a lucrative contract. In the key scene in the Warsaw airport, there are delegates who wait for the distinguished guests, but they welcome the wrong persons. Orvanelli will get lost in the city. We can see a guy reading a newspaper while waiting. It's Heroldo de Esperanto, a real Esperanto newspaper. Later, there is also a short dialogue in Esperanto. The film screens also a dialogue in Italian. In a way, foreign languages are kind of spicy in this comedy. Hungary is protagonist in dubbing his masterpieces into Esperanto, and especially with Mephisto. In 1987, for the centenary year, as somewhere in Europe, it comes out the Esperanto version of Mephisto. Mephisto is based on a novel by Klaus Mann, directed by Istvan Szabó, starring Klaus Maria Brandauer as Hendrik Höfgen. As it happens with many other films from the Eastern Bloc, a leitmotif in plot is anti-Nazism. The story is a reprise of Goethe's Faust and Mephistopheles. The actor, Hendrik Höfgen, living in the 20s in Hamburg, breaks with her fiancée, Juliette Martins, because of her Nazi sympathies. He will then marry Barbara Bruckner. They move in Berlin for his career, but soon Hitler becomes Chancellor of Germany. Barbara wants to leave the country, but Henrik decides to stay for his career, arguing that a German actor abroad has no future. The more he stays, the more he loses himself, becoming a Nazi puppet. Mephisto is the first Hungarian film to be awarded with an Oscar as the best foreign language film. The Esperanto dubbing is of very high quality. Let's watch together a scene from the film, dubbed in Esperanto. Apologies for the low quality of the resolution.
Kai se permesate ad uni personan rimarcon, tiui estas curagiae vercoi. Curagiae, char ili captas nian epocon, char ili sen sentimentalismo malcasas la bellezon de forto. Sen aine burgas novismo, spitante ties mensogan cae degenerintan ad guston, kiui parolacias pri la culturo. En videblas muscoloi cae profiloi, videblas la homo men, tia cia la sanae homoi volas vidi lin. Fortega, cae bela por la corto, batala, cae vencanta en la batala.
Saluton, Hendrik Hövgren, vi parolis bele.
Nicoletta, kia vi estas ci tie? Ciu vi conas unu la alian? Mi ec ne scias.
Tre bone.
Oh, vi en Berlino? Cae de kiam?
Mi devis reveni en Berlinon, Hendrik, cae mi devas vespermangi cum vi. Mi vidis vin tiom antaŭlonge, sed mi legis ĉion skribitan pri vi. Kie vespermangi, Hendrik?
Lau via placio. Kial partas hamburganoi? Ciu la vivo necessis en vi?
Hamburganoi? Mi venis en Berlinon cae vespermangios cum vi. Hamburg pas la aferoi formigis alie. Sciu Krug estas en Svislando, foje li malaperis, li lasis la tutan teatron, li diris ec ne vorton pri tio, foje nur
Krug estas perfidulo.
Nocto de la Galaxia Fervoio, 1985, in English, Night of the Galactic Railroad, is a Japanese anime with the title, credits and sections bilingually Japanese Esperanto. It is based on a very famous Japanese traditional story by the poet Kenji Miyazawa. The diegetic language of this cat-ruled world is Esperanto, as the writings attest, and there is a hymn, Dio pli apud vin, sung by a choir. The Esperanto lyrics were done by Konishi Gaku, university professor of physics, member of the Academio de Esperanto, and renowned Japanese Esperantist. The scene shows the press machine that prints the Esperanto lyrics of the hymn. Gattaca, 1997, is a sci-fi dystopia with a stellar cast. Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, Jude Law. It comes towards the end of the cyberpunk movement, with eugenics instead of cyberspace ruling humanity, and therefore labeled biopunk. The film title is based on the 4 nucleobases of DNA. Esperanto is a kind of Easter egg in Gattaca, as you have to pay attention very carefully to the voice-over in a transitional scene of few seconds. Let's watch together the scene. We came to the new millennium. In 2004 came out the most interesting case of Esperanto used in cinema, the vampire superhero thriller Blade Trinity, the 3rd episode of a fortunate trilogy. In the scene in the police station, the official writings of the public space are bilingually in English and Esperanto. Moreover, in the scene in the vampire gadget shop, some titles of the dark comic books are in Esperanto too. But, more importantly, there is a scene where a friend of the protagonist is injured and watch TV. On the screen, we see one of the opening scenes of Incubus, a lot of Easter eggs for the joy of nerds. Let's watch together the dialogue in Esperanto. Note that this dialogue is in broken Esperanto, widely mixed with English.
Cuchillo?
Il piano schieten aan kou.
Julle fucker bij zo'n snoepang hoeven.
Nee, espero que nee.
In the same year, 2004, came out in Spain El Coche de Pedales, the pedal push car. Set in Easter 1959, it shows the 9-year-old Pablito seeing a pedal push car in a store window. He tries to do anything to get it through his parents, who go through all kinds of lies and trickery. The film shows how everyday life under Franco could be in a left-wing family. The father, in particular, is a typing and Esperanto teacher, and this reveals his leftist political sympathies. In the story, he meets conspirators with whom they signal their political alliance using Esperanto. The Spanish Esperanto Federation helped with pronunciation and checked the language. I will make an exception on the perspective I presented in the opening of this video with Kazaroza, as it is not a feature film but a TV miniseries screened for the first time in 2005 in Russia, where it was also produced. There are few sentences in Esperanto to give ground to the story, which starts in the Esperanto club Espero, that is hope, somewhere in the Urals, when the famous singer Zinaida Kazaroza is murdered. Svenchinkov, former soldier of the Red Army, starts to investigate, and he will discover that her life was much more complex than it appeared at the first glance. Set in 1920, Kazaroza is based on a novel finalist of the Russian Booker Prize in 2003 and depicts Russia during the Civil War. The plot ends in 1975. In Russia, it was a big success. Universal Esperanto Association distributed a DVD with Esperanto subtitles. Let's watch a short extract together.
Мыши, мыши, а в доме нет души, она одна. И шорохи в тиши, и ночь длинна. Алиса ждет, когда же скрипнет дверь. Приди скорей, пушистый, милый зверь. Спаси меня, я так боюсь мышей. Вдруг тень в дверях, и кошка перед ней. Как сабля выгибается спина. Несчастная Алиса спасена. Несчастная Алиса спасена.
Gerda malaperis, id est Gerda disappeared, is a didactic novel by Claude Piron, a well-known Swiss Esperantist of the past. The novel was very popular in the 80s and lived a renewed interest in the 0 years when it was adapted for the web and put in different Esperanto websites with extra material in national languages, such as French or Italian. The film with the same title was produced in Brazil in 2006 as a DVD, directed by Joe Basilio Costa, with subtitles in 7 languages. Costa produced later another film in Esperanto, La Patro, The Father, an adaptation of a Japanese classic by Kikuchi Kan. Both films are low budget and not particularly refined. The production house seems not to exist anymore, at least not in the internet. Let's watch a dialogue.
Diable, viver shiny a machine. Nu, vi ancora ne diris al mi kiu okazis dum vi spioni rigardes tiun paron?
Okazis io vere stranga
fakte. En la mano de tiu junulo
estis io.
Kio?
Mi ne povis vidi io tre eta malgranda afero, afereto.
Kaj dum ŝi ne rigardis, lia mano alproksimiĝis al ŝia taso.
Attack of the Moon Zombies, 2011, is a black and white film directed by Christopher Meme, who received a honorable mention for the best independent production. Meme's cinema is a homage to American horror sci-fi B-movies. He produced many films, both in English and in Esperanto, also translating the film titles with their iconic lettering. The dubbing is of good quality, even if sometimes the translations are too close to American English in their wording. Unlike the previous feature film, Captain Fantastic 2016 is a bigger production. Directed by Matt Ross, more famous for acting in secondary roles in films and TV shows than as a director, this feature film is his second one, and it is revealed to be a one-bet. Starring Viggo Mortensen as the father, the story follows a family grown up in isolation in the forests in Washington state, following a left-wing anarchist philosophy against American capitalism. A hilarious scene is the celebration of Noam Chomsky's birthday instead of Christmas. Life forces the family to venture into the American world again, and the kids have a hard time to understand their peers. In the key scene during a road trip, the two sisters rebel against the father, speaking modal Esperanto as their secret language, inevitably incurring in his wrath. Let's see the key scene.
Manca sami panjo.
Hey.
Mi deziras ke panjo povus reveni hejmen ĝuste nun.
No. No Esperanto. I'm not joking.
Domaĝe. Yes, domaĝe.
No foreign language unless the language is spoken by all. You know the rule. Sie können Deutsch sprechen.
Mi rajtas paroli en kin ajn lingvo kiu mi volas.
要是你想说普通话的话也可以。
Jes, nia kulpo ke vi ne povas paroli
No Esperanto! Please.
L'incredibile storia dell'Isola delle Rose, in English simply Rose Island, 2020, is an Italian feature film directed by Sidney Sibilia, already known in Italy for the trilogy Smetto quando voglio, I Can Quit Whenever I Want. It is a hymn to civil disobedience and the motto of 1968 La fantasia al potere, creativity should have the political power. The film is based on an Italian novel written by Walter Veltroni, which depicts engineer Giorgio Rosa as a left-wing visionary revolutionary man who wanted to build an independent state in the middle of the Adriatic Sea for the sake of freedom. Historians showed that this Esperanto micronation was not exactly driven by libertarian ideas. However, the film, distributed by Netflix and well dubbed and subtitled in many languages, not Esperanto though, gave a lot of visibility to the language as a symbol of empowerment and free thinking.
Ci serve una lingua.
In che senso?
Viene gente da tutta Europa. Serve una lingua ufficiale che non sia l'italiano, che però non sia neanche di un altro stato, una lingua libera, internazionale.
The recent feature film The Duke, 2021, tells the story of a 60-year-old taxi driver who in 1961 stole Goya's portrait of the Duke of Wellington from the National Gallery in London. The story emerges only 50 years later, maintaining an intriguing web of lies and secrets, where Esperanto plays a little role in the plot. Thank you for bearing with me in this journey across Esperanto cinema, a topic I find fascinating. The variety of views never ceases to amaze me. Some feature films are aware that Esperanto is a living language with a culture and a community, others not. Some feature films are big productions, others are low budget and independent. They come from Europe, America, Russia. Esperanto, once again, celebrates diversity of thinking and the power of imagination. Dankon.